Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining me for this Google Hangout. I'm going to actually keep this really short today. I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes talking with you about the results of our Entrepreneurs Organization eBrain study. Now, actually, as I say that, let me share that this was not put on or endorsed by Entrepreneurs Organization, but I was grateful to have many of the members of EO actually participate as guinea pigs in this study. So I want to thank all of you who participated. As of today, we've had about 280 brain assessments done by members within the EO organization. I know many of you watching are going to be from within EO, and many people are watching just because they're curious to hear about our findings. So I welcome all of you as well. So just a quick overview of what I'm going to talk about. I do want to give you some of the actual findings of this study. I also did a fairly short, had a fairly short conversation with Dr. Gordon. It was about 15 minutes long, I believe. And I have that recorded, and although I'm not able to show it during the Hangout, I'm going to post the link to that conversation just below where you see this video, so you can click to see what we discussed with regards to the results. But just in a couple of minutes, I wanted to share with you our overall findings and our next steps. I want to start by saying that I was really inspired to do this research by another gentleman who did some similar research, Dr. Michael Freeman, who's a professor at UCSF and an entrepreneur as well. He actually did a study looking at entrepreneurs and mental illness. And anyone that would like to see a copy of that white paper that he put together, it's absolutely fascinating. Some of the things that I found interesting were that they showed a link with entrepreneurs and higher rates of mental health issues. They studied 242 entrepreneurs, and 49% reported having some sort of mental health condition. Depression was the #1 reported condition, which was shown in 30% of all entrepreneurs, followed by ADHD at 29% and anxiety problems with 27%, which was a lot higher than the US population, where only about 7% actually showed levels of depression. So in my work with EO, and also being an entrepreneur myself, trying to kind of understand how my own brain works, I read this study and I was really curious to see if there was any way to find a brain-based reason why maybe entrepreneurs are showing these higher levels of depression and anxiety. I also just wanted to utilize the integrative neuroscience assessment that I've been working with Dr. Heidi Gordon as a tool to identify in this particular population what is helping to make them successful from a brain perspective. So I guess in some ways we were looking twofold. #1 is there an underlying kind of brain-based reason for entrepreneurs to be showing these higher levels of things like depression, anxiety? Other things actually that showed up in Dr. Freeman's study were ADHD, substance use, bipolar diagnoses, and some other things. So again, I'll actually try to post a link to that paper below this video. And I want to thank Dr. Freeman for the work that he's doing. I hope to connect with him at some point to share our research. So when we did the assessments with EO participants, basically I used EO as a population because of the requirements just to get into EO. And you can find out more information about that on EO's website, or you can send me a note. I'd be happy to share that as well. But I've been working with EO in different capacities for about 5 or 6 years, teaching at Leadership Academy, teaching at some of the global universities. This year I'm going to be speaking at 2 regional meetings, at Thrive in Chicago and at NERV in Boston. Super excited about that. And I will be sharing more of the details of our findings, as well as specific brain training tips for entrepreneurs to have the key factor that we're identifying, which is adaptable effectiveness. So I want to tell you a little bit about that. In the study, as I mentioned, we looked at about 280 successful entrepreneurs. What we showed was that the stress levels within those participants was significantly higher than the normative data we use. So to explain that a little bit, each person that takes the assessment is matched with a control. And so that person is the same age, gender, and education, so that we can look at kind of a healthy average normal, I guess, in some ways, data point compared to this particular individual. Each individual is scored, and then we looked at the overall average to kind of come up with these statistics. And I do have some nice charts and graphs that I will have in the white paper that I'm putting together, which will be available by Friday. So as soon as that's done, I will also post that here, so it'll be easy for you to find. So stress levels were significantly higher. That wasn't that surprising to find. What we did discuss in that was that there is probably a stress threshold, which would make sense, that the EO population was about 1.1 higher than the average of 5.5, so showing about a 6.6 average. And our guess is that a little bit of extra stress is probably beneficial, but the question would be, at what point does that cross the threshold of not being beneficial? How long can you sustain those higher levels of stress? And really, perhaps most importantly, what makes you resilient to the stress. So when we're looking at the stress score, what we're really looking at is perceived stress in your environment. So what's really showing as kind of a critical factor in sustainable success is how resilient you are to that stress, that we see peak performers having higher levels of stress, but it's not breaking them down. So in our study, we did not show any significant difference in anxiety or mood level. So there was no negative in our assessment, which is somewhat similar to the assessments that were used in Dr. Freeman's work. So in this population, it didn't show as actually being a challenge. What we showed was that there were some factors that probably accounted for this greater level of resilience. So those include cognitive flexibility, which was one of the scores that was shown to be higher in this particular population. Resilience, which is a perceived resilience. That means that they believe that they have the tools that they need to be able to handle higher levels of stress. So we want to dig in a bit deeper in the next phase of the research and figure out what is it that makes this population feel more resilience or perceive more resilience, and is that actually true? I'd love to look at things like cortisol levels to see if they actually are more resilient or if they're experiencing some sort of biophysiological breakdown as a result of those high levels of stress. And then the other thing, which is one of my favorite areas to study, is positivity bias. I will be definitely doing some more videos on what positivity bias means, how you can actually train that. I just finished actually presenting at the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor a very, very short presentation on using humor as an intervention to shift negativity bias towards the positive. And we actually used an EO population for that research as well. So I want to thank all of the people who helped me with that. So again, with this group, stress was higher, but resilience was higher, cognitive flexibility was higher, positivity bias was higher, which really just means that you see stress or you see challenges as opportunities as opposed to potential threats. And this is super critical in looking at how we manage stress and use stress to our advantage. The other couple of things that showed up as being significantly different were recall memory. This population had a greater recall memory than kind of the average normative data, and they also had a greater motor coordination. So as you'll hear me talk about with my conversation with Dr. Gordon, I actually thought motor coordination was kind of a throwaway item at first until I started studying it more, and I realized that motor coordination actually does have something to do with decision making and taking those decisions into action. So many studies have actually shown that entrepreneurs are quicker to pull the trigger on making a decision. Now, whether or not that's a good thing, I'm sure people have experiences with both, but we believe in looking at all of the data that a greater motor coordination with flexibility is probably key to sustainable success in entrepreneurship, because really it's about being able to make decisions, move into action, and then be flexible to make those the best decisions possible, to enlist social support, to use the different resources that you have, as opposed to many people who just stay stuck with a great idea. That's the difference. A lot of people have a great idea, but that idea never gets going, it never gets into motion. So those were the results that we found overall. An interesting side note is that I actually did break it down as well into male and female, and we saw some very interesting results on that. Males showed higher with stress, Males also had a higher recall memory. In fact, the female EO population didn't have a really significant increase in recall memory. However, females had a higher motor coordination. Females had a much higher flexibility, which was interesting. Females also showed higher in positivity bias, and males and females were about equal on resilience. So the results of that will be in written form for you in the white paper. So you'll have access to all of that, as well as some background as to why we did the study, what the findings mean, and ultimately what we're coming up with is a model of training adaptable effectiveness, that it's potentially more important than having the talent, the skills, the knowledge, the products, the services, all these other things that we spend a lot of time and money on developing, than the ability to be flexible in the moment and the ability to navigate the journey of being an entrepreneur. Most people actually who fail in entrepreneurship fail from burnout, not bankruptcy. And the reason I share that is because we focus a lot on having the financial resources, and obviously that's critical. But what happens to a lot of people is that they actually burn out, that their energy is wiped out even before their funds are. And a lot of times that's because we're self-funding, and that's exhausting. But the key in all of this is, how do we build and sustain adaptable effectiveness from a brain perspective so that we can navigate this in a way that doesn't cause us to burn out, to break down, and to run out of our resources. So that's what we're working on next, is taking these findings and actually putting together an eBrain training curriculum that would teach people how to have this adaptable effectiveness. And the specific techniques that are going to be most effective for this are probably going to be things around shifting negativity bias towards the positive, improving perceived resilience and the ability to handle stress, and also being able to integrate optimal oscillation. So any of you who've heard me speak before know I speak a lot about sustainable energy management. How do you put energy out into the things that you're working on and then recharge in ways that are going to help you to recover more and more quickly? Just like we train the body to be resilient and to be flexible and have endurance, we want to do the same thing when it comes to the brain. And we know that we can actually do that thanks to neuroplasticity. Say that 10 times fast. So that's kind of my overview. A couple of quick questions that I received from people prior to the Hangout today. The first one is, are there ways to assess and train the kids of all of these people? And yes, I'm happy to say that this same assessment is being used with children. There really is, in my knowledge, there's no too soon age. I will follow up with Dr. Gordon on that, but we do have kids, especially 10, 11, 12, into their teens. I think the earlier that we start incorporating brain health and brain fitness into childhood development, the better off we're going to be, because that's when kids' brains are most plastic. In fact, around the ages of 9 to 14 is when the brain is really priming itself and pruning those connections to just stick with the things that matter most. And hardwiring those neural patterns. So if we can use this with kids, all of the brain training that we have online is kid-friendly, and we also have some programs specifically for kids. So if you have more questions about that, or if you want specific links, specific tests, specific games, I know Dr. Gordon even has some specific meditations specifically. Boy, I said specific a lot, sorry about that, for kids. Post in the comment section below, and I'd be happy to share that information. The second question that I received is, if you want to make changes, how much training do you really need to do? Everybody wants to know, like, give me the quick bullet point. How much of this do I need to do? So our research shows that about 5 to 10 minutes at least 3 times a week is going to be enough to see some changes. What we recommend is that you take the assessment, you start on a 21-day or 30-day challenge to improve one of the capacities that is most important to you, and then retest. You'll actually be able to see, likely within just 21 to 30 days, some noticeable changes if you stay really focused on one capacity at a time. The way that we've been incorporating this now is that you have access to an assessment online. Once you take that, you will actually have 30 days of, in fact, I think we changed that. I think it's 90 days now of free online brain training. And so you can go back and assess as much as you want within that 90-day period. And if you want to extend that, you can do so at a very low subscription rate. And I'm not sure what that is, so I don't want to be held to anything on video, but you can take the assessment for $99. You can then use the 90 days of training. And then if you want to subscribe, there's an inexpensive way to keep that going. So again, that assessment can be shared with kids, with family members, with anyone that you want to have take that. And there's an advanced assessment package that I put together for EO specifically. And if anyone else is watching this and you're an entrepreneur and you're interested in doing this, I'm happy to extend that to you. And that to get access to that, you're going to go to eBrain.HeidiHanna.com. And the Elite package allows you to also get customized, personalized feedback from myself and Dr. Gordon. So if you take that package, it's going to give you actually 3 assessments: a brain assessment, a stress assessment, and an energy assessment. All together, you're going to take those assessments. Within 48 hours, we're going to give you a written report where we are actually going to be doing that. So it's not an automated process, as well as hopefully a very short video giving you your next kind of quick steps to train on. And then the last thing, what's next? Where do we go from here? So as I mentioned, I want to do a deeper dive into what makes this population perceive higher levels of resilience. And so I'm not sure how we're going to do that exactly, but we'll be putting together some surveys to dig in a little bit deeper. Why are you more positive? Why are you more resilient? Because we know that those are the critical factors for sustainable success. We also just launched the Institute for Integrative Neuroscience, I'm very happy to say. And so we're going to be doing a lot more research. Dr. Gordon and I partnered on that. And once a month, we're going to be doing a conscious conversation series where we'll be talking more about the research we're doing. And a lot of it is starting off within the entrepreneur space, because I just find this area fascinating. And I think that if we can train existing entrepreneurs to have more sustainability and greater levels of brain health and fitness, we can decrease some of the depression, anxiety, substance abuse that we see happening in our community. I will share one thing quickly on that. Negativity bias has been correlated 100% with depression. So if we were to look at these people who showed higher levels of depression and we did our integrative neuroscience assessment, we would find most likely 100% of those people would have a negativity bias. We know that things like relaxation, positivity, gratitude, humor will actually start to shift that. So essentially, that's probably one of the areas I want to focus on most, is how do we help those who are struggling with these brain imbalances to get a healthier brain so that they can continue along this entrepreneurial journey. And then I guess the last thing I would say, I mentioned this already, but I'm going to be speaking in the EO community very soon at the regional conferences. I'm also going to be speaking at the Gathering of the Titans meeting, where Dr. Gordon will be with me as well. And we're just looking forward to getting out in the community more and being able to work with all of you. So with that said, I'm going to wrap this up. I don't even know how long it's been, about 15 minutes, 18 minutes. I have the link to the conversation with Dr. Gordon that will be posted right below this. I hope you will take some time to watch that. We had a great time talking about it. And as well as the link to the Entrepreneur and Mental Health Study, the link to my white paper called the eBrain Study, Inside the Mind of an Entrepreneur. And please, if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, you want to be participating in this, I believe we still have some free assessments available to EO members only for study purposes. So if you send me a note, I'll let you know. I think we've got about 20 of those left. So the first 20 people that send me an email, it's Heidi@HeidiHanna.com. You've got to be an EO member for that study. And as I mentioned before, you can get the assessment. Anyone that's watching this that wants to get the EO version of the assessment, you can do that at my website, HeidiHanna.com. All right, I hope this was helpful, and I look forward to continuing the dialogue with you very soon. Have a healthy day, and please don't forget to take care of your brain. Take a few minutes right now to do something funny, find something funny, take a few deep breaths, but take care of your brain so it'll keep taking care of you. Thank you.